What is going on, everyone? It's Area of Effect with another out-of-the-box build. This time a Necromancer, the Shockromancer build. Sorks will be shocked to find out that they're not the only ones who can energize the battlefield. This one took every resource out of me, from transmutes, luminous ink, you name it, gold. I'm broke, but it's just where it needs to be now. So I'm super excited, and without further ado, let's jump in to the Shockromancer build. Let's take a look at the stat screen on the front bar. Over 4,300 spell damage, almost 30% crit. Our penetration with our breach is at 16,000. Look at our resources, our magic recovery, and our max stats. Resistances were over 25k. This is the sword and board back bar. Our resistances went up, as you can tell, to 28 and 25. We are super survivable on this build, and not just from tankiness, but also from a lot of healing over times and damage mitigation buffs that are beyond our resistances. Smoked Bear Haunch is our food on this one. We want all three recoveries. We're not a vamp on this anymore, so we can get more out of that health recovery, and we wanted that max health. We're on the steed on this. Helps your movement speed by 10% and health recovery. Again, double dipping into that health recovery. We want the steed because we're going to be lightning fast on this build, and you'll see why. You can't be stopped. If you're going to be a lightning build, you got to move as fast as lightning. We are an orc on this build. We have max stam from the brawny passive, an additional 1,000. We're going with the unflinching rage passive. I love that one. It's going to give us the healing from damage dealt, 2168 every 4 seconds, and increases our max health by an additional 1,000, which really helps us keep our health over 30,000, which I like to do in PvP. Swift Warrior, the last passive, 258 weapon and spell damage, reduce the cost of sprint by 12% and increase the movement speed bonus of sprint by 10%, so even more speed. So let's jump into the gear now. The first 5-piece set, I've used this set before, but I had to go back to it. Overwhelming Surge, we got the Lightning Staff sharpened, Max Magicka, weapon and spell, weapon and spell. When you deal damage with the class ability, you surround yourself with 583. Actually, this will go up when I buff, but 8 meters around you every second, 583. You'll see here, once I buff up, it should be a little higher, 771, that could crit every second for 6 seconds. That means there's 7 ticks because 0 counts as the first tick. 15% of that goes back to you though as Magicka. Okay, that's constantly, and it's pretty much always up. The next 5-piece set, Nobility and Decay. We've got the Sword and Board of Nobility and Decay. What this set does, this comes out of the Infinite Archive. It's a Necromancer set. Basically, when you cast a Bone Tyrant ability while in combat, you gain Beautiful Corpse and Death's Favor for 16 seconds. It increases your healing received and reduces your damage taken by 12%. Okay? But also, you basically get yourself, to sum it up, as a Beautiful Corpse. You can cast abilities on yourself as if you're a corpse. And this helps because we're using Mystic Siphon, especially with the new buff of the Major Savagery and Major Prophecy, the crit that Mystic Siphon offers. Now look, I used a Bone Tyrant ability. I'm glowing. Now I casted the B button, which was Mystic Siphon, and I am the corpse. And this AoE damage over time of shock will follow me around the entire time. I'll never lose my tether as I kite around obstacles, because without this, you have to tether to the ground, and you've seen that line going to the ground. So it goes wherever you want. And this is also going to proc constantly Overwhelming Surge because it's a class ability. For some reason, the Blast Bones that we do use doesn't proc Overwhelming Surge, and it's really stupid. Let's jump into the monster set here. Zol, the Ever Wakeful, again on another Necromancer build I've released. But in this one, it's even better because it beautifully fits our theme for this build. When you break free, it ends up creating a wave of Watcher energy, which happens to look just like lightning, a big concussion of lightning blasting out of you, and it fears all enemies in the area. But you also get weapon and spell damage for every enemy in that area. I'll display it here. Check it out. I'm stunned, then I break free, and they're all feared. Look at the tentacles coming out of the back. That indicates that I've got a weapon and spell damage buff as an enemy was hit, or at least one enemy. Okay, so my weapon and spell damage went up there as well. So really, if I'd have showed the character stat screen in the beginning with look at 4322 without Zol the Ever Wakeful, let me get hit, I proc it, let me buff up, let me hit my glyph, 4564, as you can see there, and then it fell off. But that's awesome. It's a nice table turning set. You get stunned and it's like, nope, you got stunned. One piece of the training, we get that extra max health. Transmute that thing from training to something else. Don't be a noob like me and just keep it the 10% experience. As you can see, Nobility and Decay, Greaves. We've got some heavy and light mixed up here. Putting the heavy pieces on the heavy spots like pants and chest. Look at Overwhelming Necklace. I've got it as Swift. Okay. In addition to the steed and in addition to being an orc, we've also got Swift on our jewelry of the necklace of Overwhelming Surge. And it doesn't end there. We've got the Swift on the Marking Ring of Majesty as our mythic, an additional 7% movement speed. So we just move on this build. I didn't work in minor or major expedition, and you could. I didn't have described scripts to write those in, and maybe I would have, but believe me, we're fast enough. There are other options. You could do Shapeshifter if you like to transform into the big Bone Colossus. Sea Serpent's Coil. Won't slow you down too much with all this speed. There was a 1-bar setup I was messing with, but I'm not going to show that now. If you have questions, I guess leave me a question in the comments and I'll maybe post the idea I had with that. But we went with Markin because I wanted that weapon and spell damage and that physical and spell resistance just constantly. Now the monster set, if you don't like Zol, or you don't have Zol, there are so many other options that fit the theme. I would have recommended Stormfist, but with the update coming out, they're nerfing that damage to the ground. Let's jump into the skill section now, starting with the staff bar. First skill, Force Pulse. Flame, Frost, and Shock damage all at once, and up to 2 nearby enemies get over 8,000 magic damage if they have a status effect. That status effect doesn't have to be caused by you, by the way, just any status effect. So most likely they usually do. But I'll show you what the bounce looks like. Let me get them going here with some dots and some stuff. And when I Force Pulse, you'll see that it'll bounce around like a beam. It's going to the Ogre, then it will bounce up to 2 people. So it can get all 3. See it just bounce back and forth? So that's what Force Pulse will do. It kind of turns it into like a direct damage AoE. All right, next skill, and our first scribed skill, Shocking Burst. Unleash a powerful burst of magic. 6,000 shock damage to all enemies around you. It deals shock damage over time, over 20 seconds, and we get our Major Brutality and Major Sorcery out of this. I love this because when we jump in with our ultimate, we're able to blast this and spam this for a lot of AoE damage on all targets around us. You could, and I did, use the Skeletal Mage for a while. It does fit the theme. It gives you Major Sorcery and Brutality now, and it's a Lightning Mage, but I liked the way I could mechanically use this one better. The next skill, Dazing Soul, magic damage up front. It stuns them for 3 seconds, magic damage over time, and inflicts them with Major Breach. I wanted to get some breach on this build. You could, if you're not worried about that stun, you could turn that into Shocking Soul, shock damage up front, shock damage over time, and Major Breach. The next skill, Spirit Guardian. 16 seconds of very good healing every 2 seconds. While active, 10% of the damage you take is mitigated by the spirit, which is just like having major protection at all times. This works and doubles up great with Nobility and Decay. Death Favor, 12% damage mitigation. So there's 22% right there just from those two, in addition to our physical and spell resistance. Also, while having him out at all times, helps us have our recoveries that you get from having a Blast Bone, a Mage, or a Mender out in the Necromancer passives. Now, Blast Bones. After 2.5 seconds, he runs out, deals over 12,000 disease damage to all enemies in the area. He's going to give everybody a status effect, so that's going to work great with Force Pulse. After you send him in, you start Force Pulsing, the splash damage and the Force Pulse is going to bounce around. Now, he's not Shock, I know that. You could morph him into the other one, that Sacrificial that blasts into you, increases the damage of your damage over times and your class abilities. But I don't know, man. There's nothing like that Blighted Blasty. Just so much damage. Just keep him thrown out, keep him thrown out. I think it will outperform Sacrificial Bones. But anyway, our ultimate, Eye of Lightning, 6,000 shock damage basically every second for 8 ticks, 7 seconds. 0 starts as a tick. So we buff up, we lunge on in with, just our speed. We get in the middle of the thick. We got the dot on us. At our feet, from Nobility and Decay, Mystic Siphon, we got Overwhelming Surge, Eye of the Storm, and we got the burst from our Scribed Shock Burst. and it's so powerful, and everything is lightning all around you. Now, the other bar, Sword and Board bar, the first skill is irreplaceable. Hungry Scythe. It deals magic damage. It's magic, not shock, but it does look blue. You heal right up front for almost 5,000 health for the first enemy. You heal right up front for 1611 for each enemy that's in the area as well. And then after dealing it, you get almost 2,000 health every second, which is going to last longer the more enemies around. And we use that to heal, and then we use that for Nobility and Decay. Then it procs our, as it says here, Bone Tyrant ability. It's what it is. Then we cast Mystic Siphon on ourselves, and we become the center of that lightning storm. The cool thing is, because there's two abilities we use from the Bone Tyrant skill tree, Summoner's Armor and Heavy Hungry Side. If there's no enemy around, you can pre-buff with the armor, Summoner's Armor, and then cast Mystic Siphon on yourself instead of swinging the scythe and then casting Mystic Siphon on yourself. The next skill, Resolving Vigor, 16,000 almost health over 5 seconds. It gives us Minor Resolve and Minor Ward. We already get that from our armor, so I know that's redundant. You could put a Scribed Heal in there or something else. I wanted a Stamina Heal is why I did that. Next skill, Mystic Siphon. We already talked about this. Basically 20,000 shock damage over 20 seconds. It ticks every half second, which I love. Now gives us our major Savagery and Prophecy. And while it's siphoning, 150 health, magicka, and stamina recovery at all times. And while it's slotted, your damage done is increased by 3%. Now we do have this set up on the back bar, so we're not going to get that 3% in the front bar. If you want to switch some things around, you can. But for the flow and what I do in block cast, I like to have it on my Sword and Board bar. So 3% I lose there. Oh well. Next skill, Resistant Flesh. Over 10,000 health. Big bursty heal. I love this. You do get a slight debuff. Healing received and damage shields. We don't really have any damage shields, so just 6% reduction to healing received. Not done, of course, but anyhow, with all the extra healing we get from Nobility Decay, we're still offsetting that. We're still +6. There was a 1-bar build that didn't have a corpse consuming ability, and I switched to the other morph of that. The next skill, Summoner's Armor, basically major and minor resolve for 9,000 resistance over 30 seconds. Reduces the cost of our Blast Bones, Skelly Mage, and Spirit Mender by 15%. And we're at least using 2 of those. So the ultimate now, Temporal Guard. It resets the clock backwards. Basically, you go back to your position, physically your position, and then health, magicka, and stamina, they all go back to whatever they were, how much you had in your pool 4 seconds ago. I love this morph too, because while it's slotted, we get minor protection, so another 5% damage mitigation. Look, Break Last Sight, cast it, I'm right back where I was. Look at my resources. See that bubble shield there? That's a Psijic passive, just an extra damage shield. I guess we do have one, huh? Well, let's jump into the CP distribution now. The blue tree. The first CP point is in Fighting Finesse, increases critical damage and critical healing done by 8%. Biting Aura, I feel like it's a no-brainer. Area of effect attacks by 6% more. Everything we do is area of effect. I am area of effect. Thaumaturge, damage over time by 6% more. Everything we do also, except for Force Pulse and Blasty. And Untamed Aggression, just a flat 150 weapon and spell damage that we can keep at all times to help us along our little lightning way. The red tree, Boundless Vitality, 1,400 max health at all times. Help us keep over 30,000 there. Fortified, 1,731 physical and spell resistance, just bringing that damage mitigation up a bit. Rejuvenation, 90 health, magicka, and stamina recovery at all times. We get more out of that health recovery now with a non-vamp. And Celerity. I wanted the movement speed, 10% additional movement speed, so we're as fast as lightning, boy! So yeah, we want to move fast. So we don't need a streak, we just run it. Well, that's going to wrap up the CP distribution and wrap up this build video, the Shockromancer build. If you like this build and you want to see more, head on over to my channel, check out what I've got on there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, leave me a comment. And he just cut me off. Dude, it's my dude. Hello? It's my video.
Listen to the no's, I just
Whatever.
wanna keep
Area of
moving.
effect,
Keep my
signing
head up
out.
when I act. Head up, that's a fact. Never looking back. I'ma keep myself on track. Keep my head up, staying strong. Always moving on. Feel I don't belong.